Hi, welcome to The Property Educator. My name's Brad Howard. Just up to the third video within looking at demographics and what their attitudes to property are. First we looked at the baby boomers, then we looked at Gen X. So they're the last two videos. If you haven't seen them, have a quick look at them before you actually watch this video, so you can get how it flows right through in a sequential pattern. Also gives you a bit of background in the lead up to what the Gen Ys are about. So Gen Y is what we're looking at today. Generation Y tends to be the 20 to 35-year-old group in Australia. Really interesting things have happened with Gen Y, as also mentioned in previous videos. Gen Y was our smallest demographic. We had the baby boomers, then we had the Gen X, which was bigger population than the baby boomers, and then family sizes shrunk quite dramatically, and therefore Gen Y became quite a small population. However, due to a huge amount of immigration into Australia over the last 10 years, most of that immigration has been from Gen Y, singles and couples coming from international to come for the work opportunities within Australia. So that has meant that Gen Y has actually become a bigger population than Gen X, according to the Bureau of Statistics. So therefore we've got the baby boomers, our next population coming along, a Gen X which gets bigger, and then the next population as well that comes on, the 20 to 35-year-old group, the Gen Y, is bigger again because of the huge amount of immigration that's come into the country. Great for Australia in regard to future growth. And as you need, if you've got more people, you need more cars, you need more houses, you need more of everything. If you've got population shrinking, you need less and less, which is where most of the Western world now sit, in shrinking populations, negative population growth. Australia, we're still heading in that positive population growth, and we're getting the growth from future generations. Unlike Japan, which is a really interesting story, where they have a population that's shrinking, but also their biggest populations are their oldest generations, and the oldest generations are downsizing. The oldest generations have less money to spend. They're over all their spending cycles, which leaves Japan in a very, very tough position for many years, because the old are getting older and there's very few young ones coming along to replace them. And younger, up to the 47-year-old bracket, is where most spending occurs in any economy. So therefore, their spending opportunity has really dropped. In Australia, ours keeps ploughing along at a great rate. Gen Y. Gen Y tend to be the children of the baby boomers. So that's how the generations tend to work together. Gen Ys are coming through. Gen Ys have had a very different attitude to life, and I'm speaking in very general terms. This does not apply to every Gen Y, but generally. So the majority, you would say. And listening to and reading people like Bernard Salt, a leading demographer in Australia, who's written books, and you might have heard him on the radio and watched him on television, a great researcher of demographics in Australia. And as he puts it, the Gen Y tend to be a generation where they haven't been the same attitudes as Gen X, because they've come through with probably some of the best economic times in the world has ever seen, and continued growth and growth and growth, and so many job opportunities, a lot of money flowing around. So Gen Y in Australia is a generation that really hasn't seen hard or tough times. Because of that, they really haven't come through with attitudes of doing a lot of saving. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, it's just the way that they tend to think. They haven't had a lot of saving, and so they haven't been as aggressive of purchasing property as generations before them. So a lot of them get married later, have children later, and that spread, rather than everyone doing the same thing at the same time, or majority of people, which has happened in previous generations, Gen Y tend to spread out a lot more, and the difference between when someone has their first child can be a big range rather than a big group all at the one age group. But if we still work on their peak spending cycle is 47, their first climb up to that peak which is a big spending cycle, tends to be around 31 years of age is when, on average, an Australian buys their first property. So if you're looking at Gen Y, the 20 to 35-year-old bracket, when you're looking at property for that demographic, you're probably looking at their first home purchase. They are mainly a group of first home buyers. So what are they looking for a first home buyer? Tends to be a lot of the mortgage belt type properties. It has to be affordable for them. So properties that they might look, and they're preparing to have a family, so they may be looking for the 3 or 4 bedroom. Once again, as I've said right through, 2 bedroom has become crucial in nearly all properties now. So if you are looking at renovating a property and it only has 1 bedroom, if there's a possibility of adding another bedroom to that property, it'd be well worth taking advantage of that. But if you're building property, I definitely would be looking at 2 bedrooms. So if you're looking at a two bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5, at least having 2 bathrooms in that property to make sure you're catering for a wide range of people. So that's for Gen Y. They're looking at a lot of first home buyers. Not only the first home buyers, but a lot of the Gen Y are also taking the attitude, why leave home? So they're living at home with parents, but while they're living at home are also accumulating an investment portfolio. Maybe they might be buying investment properties and start to compete against Gen X, who will go into that buying cycle of investment property over the next 6 to 8 years. They'll start buying up a lot of investment property. But they also may be looking at buying their first home at an earlier age than 31, but still living at home. So they live at their own home, buy a 3 or 4 bedroom property, and then rent that property out so that they can get ahead financially. And then when they turn to the 31, then they're ready to settle down or have children or whatever, then they may move into that house down the track. So it's a slightly different attitude rather than the Gen X and baby boomer who bought their house, moved into it, lived in it, and that was their home, and then upgraded down the track. Gen Y have a real mix of, yes, the first home buyer, but also the first home buyer who doesn't actually live in the property but lives at home and rents that property out. So when you're looking at properties to cater for Gen Y, they are also a very savvy group who tends to be able to cut through the BS, as they cut through the bullshit, basically. And they can quite clearly see, they do a lot of research, and they do a lot of that research online. And generally they've done all their research, checked out testimonials, etc., before they've even go and check out a property. A lot more well researched when they go out there. And they can go straight to the point and know what they want. So, once again, rather than playing to the emotions, they can tend to be a little less emotional. Or if you want to capture that emotional, you may have to do a lot of that online and build that emotion somehow online to attract if you're going to sell or rent that property, because that's where Gen Y are going to be looking. Newspapers, magazines, etc., a thing of the past for Gen Y. It's all online for them, and you really have to work out how to get to Gen Y. That's particularly if you're selling the property, and if you are a sales agent or you're looking at doing your own sale. When you're building, if you have to build property for Gen Y, think carefully how you're going to target them. So if you're going to target the first home buyer who's going to move into the property, crucial things you need to have, they do tend to like all the bells and whistles. They have grown up with a lot higher standing of living than the previous generations. So things like dishwashers, things like air conditioning, things like security, all very much standard features in a property. Without them, a big drop in value of rent and also sale. Without them, the 2 bedrooms, high ceilings in living rooms, lawns, gardens, not so crucial for them. It's the internal spaces that they need. So living areas, good sized living areas, decent sized bedrooms. I always recommend to build bedrooms at least can fit at least a double bed in, rather than tiny little pokey rooms. They tend to be very off-putting for a tenant or a purchaser. It's probably best to put that little bit of space into the rooms, and even treat a 3 bedroom and call one an entertainment room that can be used as a bedroom or entertainment room. So be creative, but know that you're catering for a market who does like a lot higher quality product and are not really acceptable to see older properties. If they are old, they need to be really well done up and include and put that extra bathroom on, whatever you need to, and that air conditioning to make sure you capture their attention. So when you're looking for Gen Y, a few things to really keep an eye on. Higher standard of living, they want high quality, not so much high quality, but they want all the bells and whistles in the property, and that's what they'll be looking for. So Gen Y, another demographic coming through, a great demographic to tap into, but really get an understanding of how they think and how you're going to get that property in the hands of either them to buy or them to rent. So hope that helped with Gen Y. Hope that gave a little bit more understanding of that generation. As I've said with all three generations I've gone through, I speak in very general terms. It doesn't go for every one of them, but we look at a majority and say that's pretty much what the majority tends to do. And if you can cater for that, then you can cater well for the properties you're going to offer to that generation. So thanks for staying with me for these last 3 sessions. I hope you got a lot out of it. Thanks and have a great day.